With most homes now reduced to piles of rubble, the joy felt by thousands of Palestinian families returning home after a ceasefire deal with Israel is now turning to despair. The cold reality of uninhabitable, bombed-out homes and dire shortages of basic supplies is setting in. Fahad Abu Jahum returned with his family to Jabalia from the Al-Mawazi area in South Gaza. The destruction they found was so widespread that they had no choice but to head back south.
I am displaced from Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis. When they announced the ceasefire, they said the displaced could return north. We missed the north. My base is in the north, and my whole life is in the north in Jabalia camp. 3 days ago, we headed north, but it was destroyed. There was no life. Nothing. It's a very difficult situation.
A lack of running water forces many to queue for hours to fill plastic containers for drinking or cleaning. And at night, residential districts laid to waste by Israeli airstrikes sink into darkness. There is little electricity or fuel to operate standby generators. Most of the 650,000 people displaced from the north had re-entered Gaza City, according to Hamas authorities. Many of those returning trekked over 12 miles along the coastal highway, often carrying all their remaining belongings after months of displacement. A Hamas official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said less fuel, cooking gas and tents were brought into Gaza than agreed in ceasefire talks. Israel strongly denies this. A spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Agency that liaises with the Palestinians said that tens of thousands of tents have entered Gaza since the ceasefire, and that gas and fuel are being delivered daily and in keeping with agreements.
Multiple deaths have been reported after a passenger jet and U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided mid-air and crashed into the Potomac River Wednesday night near Reagan-Washington National Airport. Police said several agencies were involved in a search and rescue operation in the river. The airport said late on Wednesday that all takeoffs and landings had been halted as emergency personnel responded. The Federal Aviation Authority said PSA Airlines was operating a regional flight for American Airlines, which had departed from Wichita, Kansas. American Airlines said 60 passengers and 4 crew were on the plane. A U.S. official said 3 soldiers were aboard the helicopter. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas said on social media that, quote, "We know there are fatalities," though he did not say how many. NBC reported that 4 people had been recovered alive from the river, while the Washington Post said multiple bodies had been pulled from the water. The National Transportation Safety Board said it was gathering more information on the incident.
So these are a network of tunnels that were built in the 1940s and then expanded in the 1950s, basically as a deep level shelter to protect British citizens against the bombing of what we know as the London Blitz. So there were 43,000 people that died during that time, so it's a memorial, a story for those people. But given the vast space we've got here, they're over a mile long, we can certainly reactivate the deepest licensed bar, which would be the deepest licensed bar in a city, and we can open up as an arts and culture section. So it's a very large space for up to 3 million people a year.
This house in a quiet corner of Brazil's Rio de Janeiro has been attracting a stream of visitors. They're curious to catch a glimpse of the family home portrayed in the Oscar-nominated film I'm Still Here. It's based on the real-life story of Eunice Paiva, a mother of 5 struggling to uncover the truth about her husband Ruben's forced disappearance during Brazil's military regime in the 1970s. Their son, Marcelo Rubens Paiva, wrote the book on which the movie is based.
Então acho que vendo o mundo assistir a essa história,
having the world watching this story is the recognition of the fight my family has been waging for more than 50 years. A fight for human rights and democracy, and a feminist one. because a single woman with 5 children managed to reinvent herself. She faced the military, sexism, prejudice, and she won.
Enfrentou militares, enfrentou o machismo, o preconceito e venceu.
Brazil's dictatorship ended 4 decades ago, but no one has ever been held accountable for the murder of hundreds of its critics. Rubens Paiva's disappearance was one of the most emblematic cases of human rights abuse of that time, and yet it is still an open case before Brazil's Supreme Court. His body was never found. Here is Cecilia Coimbra, the founder of Torture Never Again group.
It's unbelievable what they did to the family. They did it, and it continues.
Last week, the Brazilian government provided some relief to the families. Rubens Paiva's death certificate was amended to register that the cause of his death was, quote, unnatural, violent, and caused by the Brazilian state in the context of systematic persecution of the population identified as political dissidents of the dictatorial regime established in 1964. On the former Human Rights Minister Nelmaro Miranda, more than 400 other death certificates from victims of the military dictatorship all over Brazil will be rectified. The effort is led by the Special Commission on Political Death and Disappearances.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday ordered the expansion of a migrant detention facility at Guantanamo Bay.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And tough. That's a tough place to get out of.
The U.S. naval base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, already houses a migrant facility separate from the high-security U.S. prison for foreign terrorism suspects. It has been used on occasion for decades, including to hold Haitians and Cubans picked up at sea. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel called Trump's plan, quote, an act of brutality. New U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan said later on Wednesday that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency would run the expanded facility. He told reporters the center would be used for the, quote, worst of the worst. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the administration was working with Congress to determine the cost of the project. The detention facility at Guantanamo Bay was set up by George W. Bush to detain foreign militant suspects following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. There are 15 detainees left in the prison. Trump's 2 Democratic predecessors, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, both sought, albeit unsuccessfully, to shut Guantanamo down. However, Trump has vowed to keep it open. Pro-refugee groups have called for the Guantanamo migrant facility to be closed and for Congress to investigate alleged abuses there.